Alright, so today I want to show off a bunch of my boards. I've got basically all my boards out right now, and I'm about to put them all away, but before I do, it's a great opportunity to talk a bit about them. So, I'm just going to go kind of briefly, try to do kind of chronologically, but it'll probably not end up that way so much, but I'll start off with this one here. This is probably the earliest complete I've got, and this is a Other Planet P1 I've got on it, and the P1 stood for Production 1. It was not something we sold a lot of because they were all handmade, but it was the first design that we thought was production ready in as far as how capable it was and how easy it was to build. But these are the trucks that really got us the name Other Planet. You see these, and that is very clearly a different sort of thing, and that's how it got the name Other Planet, was from the P1 era trucks. And they had some very special things about them. For one thing, they leaned a lot more than the P2s do, which is the version trucks we have now. And they have this character to them. They're really nice. They're still really great to ride. They don't last as long as the P2s, and we really only have a couple left, which is kind of sad. But the P1 was something really special. Now this board was a board that we built for one of our early younger riders, Paxton, and it's actually modeled after a board he built himself. And this is something we made for him to replace his board after it got too worn out. So at the time, it was my job to just build boards for Other Planet basically as fast as possible. So we were coming up with a new P1 prototype basically every week. And so we needed a new deck to put them on every week. So this board is just a flat piece of Baltic birch. But we also had boards like this. This is, I think, probably the second board I made for Other Planet. This is the Mark II. And we just used apple ply, and we used a stringer model, and these worked pretty well. These were really easy to pump out, and we made lots of boards like this. And there's something about this aesthetic that I still really like, even though it's really just a plank of wood. You know, ultimately, when it comes down to it, boards are just a plank of wood. So, over here we've got another P1. This was a more later version. You can see we've got the P1 working with a 4-bolt pattern. We've got O-rings that go through the hanger so they're protected, and all sorts of stuff like that. And on this one, it was a demonstration model, so it's got a clear plexiglass on the front so you can see the cams. And I'm not sure, this complete was retrofitted later for something else, because we didn't normally have these giant scooter wheels on it, but this one does. And you can see just how much these things lean. It's crazy. P1s. Let's see, I think that's all the P1 stuff I've got down. So after the P1s, we started, let's look over here. After the P1s, we started with the P2s. This is some of the early, oh no, actually. This one right here. This is how the P2s started out. This is one of the first P2s. And this is one of the first 3D presses I made. So you can see this, this P2 is just made with bent aluminum brackets. And we've got the hanger that sits between the aluminum brackets. And we've got different pieces bolted together to construct the hanger. And just a single bolt in the center to hold it all together. This is one of the first versions of the P2. And this board was one of the first boards I pressed up. This is when W concave was all really hip and a new thing, and we were experimenting with that. And so this is one of the first, I made this board with a dim press. This is the first dim press I made. And I figured out some ways to dye the wood to make them more interesting. I did that on Paxton's board here too. But yeah, that's that one. And let's see over here. Here we have the extruded P2 base plates. And I'm jumping the gun on the board here, but the trucks, this is kind of the next phase of the trucks. And so we'd extrude out, we had these extrusions made, and so we weren't making base plates by bending the metal ourselves. And we eventually got cast hangers. Let me see if we can find, here are some older hangers here. This was another board I pressed with the WK from that same dim press mold. And this one, I had this nice fire burst pattern in the color. This is not a scratch, it's just MDF that's been scraped up. Clear grip, I came up with a method of clear grip with some real nice DuPont automotive finish. Really good clear grip. And some metal on the bottom, which was really cool. But unfortunately, I made this board really thin for a light rider, and some heavy riders need to use it. And you can see this is board number 5 from that series. But here you can see we had the extruded base plates that were hand drilled out, hand cut to put the hardware into it. And the hangers was UHMW sheet that were drilled out on a drill press to put the hanger, to put the axle in. And then we had a hydraulic car bottle jack to shove in the axles. So yeah, so that's this one here. This one came basically directly after this design. And after I started making these 2D boards, or these pressed boards, we started experimenting with dropped boards. So one of the difference between the P2 and the P1s is the P1s are nice and low, and the P2s were much taller. So we wanted to get the deck back at the height that we had already optimized for the P1s, and that's where this came from. This is, I think, my very first 3D pressed board. This is like the test of the press, and you can see it's not a very good press up, but I've got the drop on the front, drop on the rear, and this is ultimately, on Silverfish. I had recorded all this whole project as the Other Planet board press project, I think, something like that. Anyways, that was the first 3D board that I was making. Oh, and this is kind of fun too. This was back in the P1 era. I was trying to figure out a way to make concave without having to make a press. So I got a piece of flat board and a piece of bender board and this was just a real rough proof of concept. We never put this up, we never mounted this up with anything, but this was a bender board concave idea, which is really funky. Really aggressive. It's like an 1.25 inch concave. But yeah, that was a fun idea, fun concept. We never did anything with it, but fun idea. So let's see over here. Oh, let's talk about this guy here. This has got some seismic trucks on it, and these are some old, I think, Gen 1 seismics. This is our platypus. So this is a flat deck, but we've used these brackets to mount the trucks at a lower height. So it's kind of like a drop through almost, or a flush mount, or that sort of thing. Bracket board. And onto the brackets we built kicks for the nose and tail. And here we've got the cutouts in the side to give it a little more flex. And also we figured it was nice for moving it around and stuff. There's an early board of that concept. Let's see, what else have we got over here. Here we've got a flow board on just a really weird setup here. This is just thrown together for fun. This is a 2D plus board, so this is a really cool concept. I'll show on this one though, because it's a nicer board. This is a nicer 2D plus board. So the 2D plus concept was that we'd take a flat board and we'd build concave into it by putting on the mill drill or having it CNC cut and having this big bit that would maw out this section to give you concave. And that was a real cool concept. Planks of Baltic birch that are just flat are really cheap. I mean, you end up getting, really cheap. Makes for really cheap boards. And this is at a stage where we're still prototyping with the P2. And the thing with prototyping is you want lots of boards that are really similar, so you can, so the only difference between setups is the trucks. So that's the 2D plus boards with the mod out concave. We had a ton of those. I think we must have had, I wouldn't be surprised if we had 20 of those at one point. Yeah, that's what that's what this is. That's what that is. Let's see. Let's look at this way. This is what the Other Planet board project with the 3D press ended up being. And if we compare that, a bit stiff there. Compare that with this first board that was 3D pressed. They're pretty similar. But this one is just a lot better, a lot more refined. We don't have any W. It's pretty basic still. And we made a whole bunch of these. Actually, I made a whole bunch of these boards that I actually sold to Other Planet. And at least 20. I think I ultimately made like 30 of these boards out of this press. And yeah, this was the DH Custom, is what we called them. And yeah, made a whole bunch of those. That was the next step of the Other Planet board project, was this thing. But that ultimately went somewhere else, pretty cool. And of course the trucks in these are just another early version of the P2s. See, but that ended up going towards, see, where'd it go? That ended up being, this deck here. So, Other Planet ended up taking this design I made and taking it to Churchill, who makes Churchill decks, and they had him make this for them to sell at their store. So this is one of the early versions of that, when we were looking at having them do that for us. And this has got a few fun things on it. So at the time, the way to get the trucks apart was just through a simple, well, it still is, through an 1/8" hex. And we like to have an 1/8" hex with us when we were writing, to change out the hangers and stuff. And so we came up with this idea. The first idea was to have Velcro on the board to hold the hex, but that didn't work nearly as well as just having a magnet epoxied to the board. So that was a nice little thing. And this board had been ridden a lot, I can tell you. And so, Other Planet took this, had Churchill make these things. They ultimately went on to become these boards here. They got graphics on them. They had 4 different graphics from the different planets, Mars and Neptune and Mercury or whatever. We thought the graphics were really cool at the time because we were just all caught up in the whole thing. So we got caught up and we thought this was really cool. But then after about a few weeks after they had been made, we thought that maybe they weren't as cool as we initially thought. But that's how it goes. You get caught up in it, and yeah. So what's over here? We just got a loaded board with this is a really cool one. Just with regular Other Planet trucks. This was an EK's board, and he rode this for a long time. I refurbished this. The hanger was all chewed up, and anyway, I refurbished this so it's all nice and rideable again. really great. I'm not sure whose this was, but yeah, I just put these trucks that I just got back from someone onto this thing and just threw some wheels I had on there. And yeah, nothing too special, just typical commercial loaded stuff with other plant trucks on it. This one's really cool. This is our Riley's project to make a really cushioned ride, basically. So what we've got on here is, we've got a video on this board already, but we'll go over it real quick here. It's got Kevlar on the bottom. It's got so the flex is really damped out. It's a 2D plus board. Riley put these big rails on there to give them lots of concave. I might rip those off because those don't work for anybody's feet but his. But this has got this cool idea we came up with, a floating hanger. So the hanger on either side has got this shim, this giant shim of polyurethane rubber, black polyurethane rubber. So the hanger is got the cam, the rubber cam, and the rubber shims completely suspending it in polyurethane. So it's just, as you hit bumps and stuff, it's just on all sides, it's having the energy absorbed. It's got the energy absorbed through this Kevlar deck, and then we've got, of course, got these big old Toby wheels, which are like, you know, just, anyway, they're really cushy wheels. And so we've got this really cushy setup that's really comfortable to ride, and just has just no harshness to it whatsoever. That was a real cool project. Let's see over here. This is the ellipsis. So the idea with the ellipsis was to have a kicktail on a P2 truck. And so the problem with putting a kicktail on a P2 is the wheels get in the way. You have to have the wheel cutouts, or you have to have a really tall deck. So we came up with these wheel wells to keep your feet off the wheels. And this is I mean, it's funky, but it works. And we were all into that for a while. We went through a whole bunch of different prototypes and designs. We ended up thinking that it wasn't a good idea and that we were simply just too caught up in it. And so we kind of set it aside for a while. But then actually, after more time away from it, we decided, you know, that was actually not that crazy of an idea. And so we think this is actually, you know, there's nothing really wrong with this. Pretty fun. This is one of the boards that I don't, or that I keep around to pull out to ride occasionally. It's really fun still. It's got higher angles on it than most of my other boards. Really small wheelbase, and it's got these nose schools on it. Overall, it's pretty fun, tuned little setup. The ellipsis. This is the street luge, which I just made a video of. Let's see, I think I made like 2 wooden prototypes to get the design down. So I had wooden street luge. And then once we had it working, we kind of just took the dimensions and Captain Rob took it and made it into this giant, heavy monstrosity. And that's been a lot of fun. Street luges are a lot of fun. I wish they were safer and more visible, and you wouldn't have people not see you and kill you as much. They're tons of fun, but pretty dangerous. I've been thinking about ways to get like a flag set up on it so that you have a flag sticking up so people can see you easier. Oh, we're getting through it all. Okay. That's the flowboard thing, whatever that is. So here we got one of the Mars boards from the Churchill Other Planet design. And this is the one we put the wheel shields on. And this just hasn't gotten a lot of use. Now the wheel shield concept, we were interested in the wheel shields because they came out while we were still finishing up this whole concept with the wheel wells. And we had been thinking, well, what if we put the wheel wells on the axle instead of on the board. And that's when these came out, and we're like, oh, that's really interesting, let's try that. And we ended up getting them, and we put them on a board, and we never rode it, really, ever. So, kind of a weird way that ended up, but yeah, I do like conceptually some of the ideas of the wheel shield and what it can do, but I mean, in practicality, we've never ridden this deck really. It's virtually unridden since we put the wheel shield on it. Okay, we're doing good, moving through. Okay, so here we've got some more conventional commercial type trucks going on here. Here we've got another Mars board with original trucks on it. And you know what? I didn't like this very much. The original trucks just got this weird feeling to them I don't like. But you know what? Sure does turn. Look at that. Lots of fun. This one, I'm not sure. It's got a C-style sticker, and that's it was a board company, but it feels like a board I made. And in fact, it matches the description of a board that I made as well. But I just am not sure. It could be a C-style deck, or it could be my deck with a C-style sticker on it. Who knows? In any case, I've tuned it up, repainted the bottom, got some nice Gullwing TKPs on there. It's a little squeaky right now. But this thing rips. This one's pretty much a lot of fun. Here we've got an Agent Orange deck with some Rojas trucks on it. This was a lot of fun. This actually gets wheel bite if you try hard enough, believe it or not. I love the Roja feeling, and this is a pretty good deck shape too. But Rojas are so tall and so harsh. There's some weird things about them that takes away from the greatness of their bushings. But like the Rojas a lot. Here we've got another, this is a Gullwing Charger, yeah, and a Cast Ronin together. So the idea with this setup, this is kind of a traditional-ish setup. Ronin in the front to have the greater turnability with less turning loss to slop, and the Gullwing in the rear. Not sure what's making that clicking noise. Might want to have a look at that. But yeah, pretty traditional-ish there. Then there's this guy here. This has got the other Gullwing on it with this beast. This is an Other Planet P2 modified to accept a Rojas bushing. So the idea is we're trying to get more resistance on the P2. The O-rings are kind of, you know, make people nervous. So we're like, we got to figure out a way to make bushings work. So we came up with all these different ways. This is the only one we still have put together. And we made it work with a Rojas bushing. So the Gullwing is in the front, and the Other Planet is in the rear. It feels pretty good, actually. But I'm not sure it quite achieved our goal of getting the grip really up there. It's definitely grippier than a normal Other Planet truck, but, you know, we're hoping for like something phenomenal. Okay, over here we've got the Brain Cleaner family. So, this actually is not a Brain Cleaner. This was one of the, this was actually from the same, well, this is an evolution of this idea. So this kind of went in two directions. One direction was this one, the other direction was this one. And this was a very long deck, for what we ride nowadays at least. This was the Hershey's bar, I think we called it. And it's got some interesting things about it. One is this cork W cave We got sick of pressing the W cave in our boards, and it just wasn't working out the way we wanted to, so we're like, we'll just put the W cave on afterwards, and we'll use cork. So this has got my clear grip tape over the whole deck, except for over the cork, which is vicious, which saves you money on vicious grip. Really the only place where we use the W is just this area right here, because that's where your foot goes, and it just hugs the inside right there. So the rest of the shape is actually more just for completeness of the shape. This is kind of the board that really established this as the cutouts as a permanent feature. And some of the things about this are interesting too. I can't remember. Anyway, this was the board that I rode this board for many years. This was my main board for a long time. This is also the board we prototyped the floating hanger on. So this is actually the first floating hanger on this board. So yeah, the Hershey's bar. Still a really good deck. This is the board I've gone the fastest on. I've gone 40 on this board, basically set up just like this, except with flywheels on it instead of these rain advantages or whatever they are. Okay, so after that one, I decided to create the brain cleaner project. So this was one of the first brain cleaner prototypes, and the brain cleaner is basically a shorter version of that board with more tuned features. So I've got more angle on the front, a bunch of changes to the shape, all sorts of different things. I've got a whole series going over all that, but it's been a huge long project moving from that to what's now the brain cleaner. This is one of the brain cleaner prototypes here. This one doesn't have the cutouts because Riley was the one who was going to ride it. We tried using epoxy in a vacuum bag to press this one, and you can see the Formica didn't like that. The vacuum bag, I think, lost some of its air during that, so it's kind of weird. This is probably my least favorite deck to ride that's out of all these. It's way stiff and not very fun, and the pressing of it got messed up. So this is my current board, my current brain cleaner of the final design, and it's got this very nice Formica on the bottom and this nice green on the top, and this green and orange makes it very Halloween-y, which is appropriate. And I ride this board a whole lot. This is a lot of fun. Really great board here. I'm missing a couple other brain cleaners that I own that are out in other people's hands in various progressions of this, but yeah, brain cleaner. It's where it's at right now. And let's see, that's all the boards that are out. Let's take a look at some of the boards that are not down. So let's see. So up here in the rafters here, these are the art boards. So they don't have any trucks on them, and they're not set up because they are way too nice and fancy and artsy to actually be riding. This one was ridden, and it's all busted up, but that's a real iconic piece for Other Planet. That one, you see these two there are both for their P1 designs, so you can see they've got the cutoff ends. The rainbowish one was a P2, and then that one of the faces on it was also a P1. So we did a lot of artsy stuff back in the P1 era. Lots of fun. Let's see. We have Riley's mountain board, and Riley's one of his no trucks on it at the moment. That was the P1 setup that Riley rode for a long time. It's got carbon fiber on the bottom, and it's one that we actually bought from a board builder called Losi. So what else we got over here? Here we've got couple of DH custom boards that never got sold. a completely unused 2D Plus board, and maybe two. One might be upside down. Here's the Institute of Religion, which has got nuclear pickles on it. I'm not sure why that's not down with the rest of the stuff. Here we've got a carbon fiber ellipsis type project. That's an art board. I guess that should be over there. These are other ellipsis type stuff. That one, the one in the middle right there, is just carbon fiber. And this was where we kind of got too crazy with it and just had huge wheel wells. We tried to make it work with really big wheels. Didn't work out. That's the first fiberglass wheel well board we made. That's a board I made for my sister with turtles on it. That's the second board I ever made. Not for Other Planet. It's got brackets on it for bear trucks. And this is a mahogany P1 board that we threw together VLAM, and we never set it up or even finished it. And there we go. That's all the boards I've got right now. Lots of stuff. Lots of boards. See, I've also got this huge bucket. This bucket of P2 trucks. Actually, just all sorts of Other Planet trucks in here. So I could probably put together some more boards with that. Here I've got a bunch of slide gloves. See, over here. Here I've got a box of cams. And this is my bag of rigid cams I made. And these are my bag of all the custom cammed designs. And then here, oh, that was horrible. I've got all these Other Planet base plates that these are just the rock extrusions. And I can custom make these and cut them out manually to make all sorts of crazy stuff, if I ever get around to that. And here's a big chunk of UHMW, very expensive chunk, and I want to turn this into a set of wheels, if I can get around to that. That'd be really fun. And there we go. That's basically all I have in the garage right now. But hopefully that was pretty interesting. A lot of history, and a lot of boards. Just a lot of boards, a lot of wheels, a lot of bearings. Gosh, how many bearings are in this room? Lots of bearings. Also right here, I've got the Rotocam rig, which we've got some footage of lately. Got this nice big old bearing on it. So there we go. Now I've got to put all these boards and stick them up in the rafters so that they're out of the way. So I'm going to be off to do that. One more thing I wanted to show off, and that was my board rack for the boards that don't go up in the rafters. And that's this right here. It's a cable that goes between the studs, and you hang the boards on there by their wheels, and you can fit 3 boards between each stud. And that's my board rack. So all but 9 boards will go up in the rafters. There's also, I'll talk about this one real quick. This is my dad's board, and it's an oak plank with clay wheels, and I've upgraded the bushings on it because I'm just so fancy like that. So this thing's kind of crazy, lots of fun, no grip. Turn on it and it skids out from under you. It's like riding in the rain. There we go. Longboard technology. Over and out.